What's up, my readers and authors alike? It's Avatar Simrit here. I am the author of True Time Trilogy, Volume 1 and Volume 2, A Dream of True Time and the End of Truth, as well as several volumes of poetry and lyrics and a collection of novellas. So I write mostly fantasy, science fiction, and horror. And today I want to talk a little bit about writing character in fiction. So if you want to up your game on writing characters and more realistic characters in your novels, in your stories, or whatever, stick around, and that's what we're going to be talking about. There are no good guys. And I like that idea because really the concept of characters that are only a hero or only a villain has become somewhat of an antiquated concept. Because in real life, nothing is really that black and white. And if you want to write characters that are more realistic to the way people actually are, you don't want to write one-dimensional characters that are just a hero, a superhero with a cape, or a villain who is like wearing all black and just wants to destroy the entire world. Things are a lot grayer. And I think that one of the big contributors to this recently has been George R. R. Martin. He talks about this a lot, and you know, the coming about of grim, dark fantasy. Is the idea that the good and evil weaves its way in and out of the characters themselves in the stories. So a character might do a good and a heroic thing one day, and then the next day they could do something horrific and evil. And that's way more realistic to real life, you know? And I think that fantasies like Lord of the Rings are kind of a thing of the past now, you know, not that the Lord of the Rings is terrible or anything, but it has the idea of the villain as externalized evil. You know, the heroes are all good for the most part, and they're fighting against this entity that's pure evil, you know, Sauron. And there's no real room for gray characters in those kind of stories. You know, my favorite fantasy author and horror author is Clive Barker, and one of the reasons why is because his characters are so real and they're gray. You know, it's like they're not all one thing or the other. Especially, I want to bring up as an example The Damnation Game by Clive Barker. This was his first novel that he wrote. And the main protagonist, you know, he just at the beginning of the book, he gets out of jail to work for this rich guy. And what I really love about it is this rich guy that he works for, he's not, you know, he's not 100% evil and he's not 100% good. I mean, he's done some terrible things, and he has his daughter is like a heroin addicted, you know, drug addict, and he takes advantage of her, and there's like an incestuous relationship and stuff, but he also comes off as a sympathetic character, like a real human being. And the main character, the guy who got out of prison to work for him, you know, he develops an attachment and a love for this guy, and I feel like that really shows a realism, you know, to real life, because in real life people do horrible things, you know, every day, but they still have people who care about them and love them, you know, their family members, their friends. You know, it's like if you have an attachment to someone, you'll ignore some horrible things that they've done because you care about them. You know, in old type fairy tales, and when it's more just black and white villain and hero, you know, it's like you have these characters that are so evil that they're irredeemable or unredeemable, you know? And I like it to be more gray than that, you know, that there's an idea that, yeah, these humans have the capability of being completely cruel to other people, but they also have the capacity to deeply love each other. And that's one of the things that I like, you know, wanted to show in my fantasy books, especially in both of them, in A Dream of True Time and The End of Truth. You know, I show that these are real human beings with flaws, you know, but they're also striving to have real connections with each other. And I think that's something really important to show in your writing, in your storytelling, is that, you know, nobody's perfect, you know, and it's like, even if they're the protagonists of the story and they're struggling to do these, you know, great things or good things, whatever it is that you're trying to convey in your story, that they still have struggles and drawbacks, and that none of these things make them condemnable, if that makes sense. So, yeah, it's just a little thing I wanted to talk about today when it comes to writing fiction. And if you like that kind of fantasy where it's a little dark and the characters are gray, definitely check out my True Time trilogy. Volume 1, A Dream of True Time. Volume 2, The End of Truth. Especially if you like Clive Barker's writing and Neil Gaiman. Those are two of my all-time favorite fantasy authors. So, this is just going to be a short, brief video today. And keep reading, keep writing, and keep telling stories. Peace out, guys.